All right, we ready?
All right, Shane.
All right. All right, so the biggest thing about this demo here is that it's going to be a lot of teaching at first because I decided to figure out how to make split crosses and snowflakes actually within the last about 2 months or so. Jim had a demo of a snowflake, and it's like, you know what, I don't figure out how to do that. And then I started going online, doing my research, and found out real quickly that there's not that many people online to tell you how to make a snowflake. There's plenty of people tell you how to make a cross, but not as many to tell you how to make a snowflake. And y'all forgive me looking on my phone. I'm also the video guy, so I got to look at my video, be sure it's good. But so kind of what I want to do at first is go through and just walk you through, because when you're making these, 80% of your work is not in the fire. It's actually marking the metal, cutting it, bandsaw, as majority of what your work's going to be. So so that's what we're going to kind of get started on this morning. So first thing I'm going to talk about is the split cross. So and I actually have handouts. I'm a teacher, a professor, teacher at heart. So if anybody wants any, pass them out. And what I did was I found these. And I got plenty for everybody, and they're on car stock, so they'll be pretty durable for anybody who wants to try this at home. So, so the biggest thing you'll see here, I found this. This is from a guy that's, I think it's Orion's Anvil is what his YouTube channel is, and he actually goes through and tells you a video on how. So if you look up Orion's Anvil on Google and then you type in split cross or Friedrich's cross, is kind of the other name given to these. If you'll do that, he'll pull up a video and he shows you step by step how to do it. I actually made a video of me making one of these, and I'll be posting that too sometime today. So if you follow me on Facebook, it's OmaC Creations is my page. I'll have that up sometime this weekend as well. But he did a really outstanding job here. He kind of goes through and shows you round stock and square stock, basically how to make these split crosses. And like I said, now you can take these measurements, you can modify these measurements however you want. I've seen one other person, Jim, send it to me, of the snowflakes, and he actually does a deeper cut, long cut than I do. He goes a little bit deeper, but to me that gets the center kind of a little weak feeling, especially when you start bending it out, it feels like the metal is going to shear. So I decided those are my measurements, and when we get to that one, I actually put the math on there. I'm an engineer too, so I put the math, so depending on what stock you want to use, you can kind of get a general idea. And some of those measurements are rounded up or down to like the nearest 16th I had on my my little ruler I have. But so like I said, the biggest thing you're going to do is start off, and we'll pass these around because these are items. So Lewis, you want to start with that? Yeah. So I got some bigger ones here, and these big ones, I got an order for these. So what I'll be doing today is something that I've got to stale. But the biggest thing you're going to see on the split crosses is obviously it's a lot simpler, right? Because you got your bar stock, and you got two different sides to it. So the first cut, as you can see, you're going to just come straight down the middle, and then you're going to rotate it 90 degrees, and then you're going to come up. But the biggest thing you got to think about is do a split cross is that those two cuts have got to overlap. Because if you don't overlap and you try to split this open like I did my very first one, it's a solid cross. So when I got it on the hot cut Hardy and I actually started splitting it open, it turned into a solid cross. Now, granted, it was pretty neat. It actually, be able to show a cross shape in metal. I used a hot cut kind of finish it out. So if you want that solid cross and you want to split it from one piece of metal, you can do it pretty easily with that. Is just doing that split there. So like I said, the bigger thing I found with this is have a good bandsaw and have a lot of patience, because like I said, what I ended up doing was I kind of sit down and watch a football game on a Saturday at the kitchen table. We got a TV in the dining room, and I literally just was, as I was watching the game, I just marked these, and I did all my measurements. And then the rest of it is basically your outside. Yeah, you can stick it back on, and at your bandsaw. So, so once my fire gets going, we have a little wet feeling. Feels like, but we're getting it going. So what we want to kind of do is, and I kind of showed you on this one here, was at home. So the biggest thing I do first is I do the big split first. So I mean, it's really as easy as it sounds. The majority of your work, like I said, is at the bandsaw. So it's basically getting the metal hot, and then just using the hot cut hardy, or just using, I actually, for the snowflakes, especially the small ones, or the small stock, sometimes to me this can be a little too aggressive, or it's just awkward. I actually just took a Harbor Freight punch, and you can see I ground it down to where it's a little thinner, and I re-hardened it, and I actually used this by hand. So I found on the snowflakes that it's actually easier if you got oxygen and acetylene torches, because the metal was so small. Usually by the time you get it out, you'll see me today probably struggle with it a little bit because I'm going to lose my heat pretty quickly. So the biggest thing is getting it out and getting it bent over. So doing it by hand, especially small stock, if you're doing 3/8 or 1/2 inch stock, you can almost bend it by hand. Derek Melton just posted a video on his Instagram about sometime this week of copper. Basically he sit there and he annealed copper, and he literally just bent it by hand, because it was 3/8 copper. It's obviously it's very pliable when it's annealed. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to demonstrate taking one of these bigger crosses, because these are the only ones I've struggled with doing them with a acetylene torch. Because it just doesn't get it hot enough, in a wide enough area. I mean, I could do it, but it seems like it just takes longer. So I like doing these in the forge itself. So you got me a fire? Looks like it. All right. So we're going to stick this in, and we'll finish off that first split there. Sorry. And like I said, today's demo may be fairly quick, but one thing that I came prepared to do is once I get done showing the snowflake, I've actually got some extra blanks, because I just basically took a bar of 1/2 inch stock, and I just went ahead and cut everything up. So I'm gonna give everybody the opportunity. If you actually want to make one today, I'll let you make one. So I've already got them cut. All you got to do is heat them up and bend them and flatten them and do the steps to it. So we'll have that once I'm done with the snowflakes. So give y'all a chance to get in the fire if you want to get in the fire today. And like I said, because I'm not giving away the snowflakes, because those take a little bit more time on the bandsaw, and I have none to sell. I've actually sold everything I had. Actually, when the metal was heating a little bit, one thing I found at the conference was I took some of the snowflakes, the finished product there on the end, and I just took some white metal primer, like Tractor Supply, Lowe's, Home Depot, and I took it and I just put a flat this white primer on it, and the white one auctioned for more money than the metal one did, the metal color. Go figure, right? So, and then my wife's idea was to put the red ribbon on it. So, she said, hey, why don't you put the ribbon on that so people can go ahead and hang it? I'm like, okay. Because the biggest thing I started finding, guys, is that I've been doing this for right at 2 years now. October, about 2 years ago. November was the first time I came here 2 years ago. So, pretty much on my anniversary, the first time I'm in the fire demoing for y'all. But one thing I have found, though, is that, yeah, knives are cool. They're hard to sell. Nobody wants to buy them. I'll sell one big item versus 20 small items. And so, and that's what I have found was, like these snowflakes, the coffee scoops, the crosses, even those little I got one keychain left. And I get those from Roy at Christ Center Ironworks. They get them plasma cut. I literally heat those things up. I put a stamp in them, my touch mark. I put a Mississippi stamp on the other side of it. And I clear coat them and I drill a hole in them. I literally put 5 minutes into them. Just no joke, 5 minutes into them. And I sell them for anywhere from $5 to $10, and I sell them out every time. It just blows my mind. It's just, a lot of people, especially I guess the way the economy is right now, they don't want to spend a lot of money. So I'm finding that I'm selling a lot more of this small stuff than I am anything that's larger. So crank that up a little bit more. So, and like I said, if y'all got any questions about that, like I said, it seems like a simple demo. I mean, really, once you get the cuts figured out, to me, the longest I spent on this was the research trying to figure out how to cut it. And I will say that on my bandsaw, I got the Ryobi. There'll be a battery operated. I'm about to get a quarter one that has a bigger blade because there's just more, teeth options. But I found that if you get around like a 10 to 14, obviously you get a faster cut and you get more cuts out of the blade because those most of them you see for like conduit that are 18 to 20 something teeth. Man, I burned through a 3-pack of them cutting all these crosses. That's because I didn't want to wait on everything online. Went to Home Depot and got what they had, and I burned through those Milwaukee ones like they were, almost like sanding belts. Morris is a blade I found, and actually Derek Melton told me there's a company here locally up kind of Jackson, Clinton area that they make bandsaw blades. That's actually where he gets all of his bandsaw blades. You just go in there and tell him the dimensions you want, how many teeth, and he'll make your blades. So I'm hoping to go see him this week so I'll have a better idea about how much it'll cost for a portaband, because Derek gets them for his big industrial one. But I will say, just be prepared if you're going to do this, or if you're going to do it like I did, kind of just cut all your stock up and get prepared to do a big order of them. You're going to go through some bandsaw blades. Like I said, one thing I've ended up finding though, like I said, a lot of people like this small stuff, but to me, there's not a whole lot of time into it, and it sells pretty easily. And the biggest thing is that, like I said, we'll finish at the first bend. And then once you get to the second bend here, the rest of it is just basically putting it on the anvil and you're just going to flatten it out. I mean, it's pretty, it's not that difficult. And then when you get here, now you'll see in the dimensions, it has a discard section, labeled there. I don't have that discard section cut off of here yet. I actually do have that. Let's see. Here, so you can see there's one with the discard section off of it and one with it on. Now, the reason I leave it on now, I was cutting them off, but that makes bending that very difficult because, especially if you got a hot cut hardy, you see what it's doing. So I have to do this one now with my chisel. But what I end up doing, I just do that, and then at that point, you just eyeball it, right? If you're going to make a necklace out of it or ornament, you just figure out where you want to put the hole, and you just, there we go. Now we're getting some heat. So then, like I said, so I've already got it there. So the next thing I end up doing is just taking it. So the biggest thing you want to do though is that, sharp point of your anvil, and make sure you're putting that center, because like if you start hammering it over here, what's going to happen? You're going to end up bending it unproportional. So make sure you got your center, on the edge of that anvil, and then when you come down, you end up getting a good bend on it. And actually, the great thing about this larger stock is that it, I'll get my other tongs, is that it keeps enough heat. I'm actually going to go ahead and start working on the next section. Okay. That quick. So you're starting to see your split now. So, all right, now we're back into the fire. And then at this point, I'm just going to take it and flatten it. And then after you get it flattened, the next thing that I usually do is, this is a terrible coal, but anyway, this new stuff we got. But it's basically texturing it, right? And so what I see Derek usually do is kind of on this one here, and is he just kind of tapers the edges down, so it kind of gives it a flare look. Especially if you work on the end. If you take your peen and you work at it here, it'll kind of flare, and that's actually what I'm going to do with these. The guy who wants them flared on the end. So I'm going to end up flaring them on the ends. But I mean, at this point, I mean, you can see some on my table. Some of them I leave just straight. I didn't put any texturing into them. And I found it just different people have different, preferences on it. So So we'll get this one hot. Make sure I don't lose it in the fire. Well, man, the way this coal is burning, it's almost like it has something. It has something else in it, you know, because it's. I don't know if if you work on a coal fire enough, you kind of know what a fire looks like, and that looks like it has an extra accelerant or something in it. But I know this is some new coal we're getting, and I'm starting to get to the point now that I can start telling there's a difference. But a couple other things I've done before too, when that's heating up, is using a top cut. So so you got a hard cut or a bottom cut, and you got a top cut. Obviously, if you're doing big metal, you can shear some metal pretty quickly if you got a helper. But there's a few times I've actually put these into just if I'm having trouble with it, or like even that one that I went ahead and cut the discarded off, is just using a top cut. So you can sit there and work it with a top cut. Anything like that works. And you're going to find it very quickly that doing this in a coke fire a little bit more difficult with my propane. So my propane, I can just get it all hot, and it works a little better. But like I said though, these bigger ones are a lot easier to do because, like I said, they hold the heat longer. But you're going to find though, especially when you see me on that snowflake, especially when I'm trying to work those the ends, they're kind of the flared ends. You're going to see really quickly that heat goes out of those very quickly. So that's the reason I literally do it now with a acetylene torch, just with a flame tip sitting there, and I can heat it, bend it, heat it. I can work everything I can get to, pour it out, flip it over. I mean, from once I start heating on them, I can have it done in 3 to 4 minutes with a acetylene torch. Like I said, not overly complicated to make these, but like thinking about it, especially getting towards the holiday season, a lot of people wanting ornaments and stuff like that, and I decided just to make a few, throw them on a table last month to see if they sell, and man, they flew, so definitely gonna be a little bit of some money makers for me in my forge anyway. But I think the biggest thing you're going to find, the hardest part is finding square steel. That's the biggest thing I'm struggling with. I know locally you can go to Steel Supply. They're pretty close to River Oaks Flowwood, or wherever it's called now. Steel Services, thank you, sir. Steel Services, and but the smallest they go is 1/2 inch. So you can buy pretty bulk stock. So I'm getting my 1/2 inch from them just so I can get pretty good size of it. But anything less, man, I'm struggling because especially the way shipping costs I've gotten. It's on. It didn't make sense to go to box stores and find it if you can find them in box stores. If you try to go find some, it's probably none there because I bought everything I could find. And I go Track Supply. I go to a lot of these other ones trying to find this stock, and that's the biggest thing I'm struggling with is finding anything that's small square stock. But you can do this with round. Rounds, obviously, if you can think about it, is a lot more difficult, especially cutting it. What I've ended up developing is I just have a small, on my bandsaw, I made a stand for it, so I have a pretty good little table for it. And my kids must be outside setting my alarm off, my camera alarms. What I ended up doing was just taking a small vise and I put the steel in there. That way I don't get any rotation on it, right? Because the hardest thing I found I got some 1-inch copper I'm cutting now, and like I said, the hardest thing I found was keeping that that round stock from moving. So here, like I said, usually I just come here and just start working it down. Now, what you'll end up finding though is that on those small ones, you probably don't want to use a hammer. You want to use something like a saw face or a wooden mallet, because what you're going to end up have is you're going to start putting marks in it. But this 3/4 inch, this is 3/4 inch stock here. It likes to don't like to move as easily. So there you are. So now one thing you're going to see though, you kind of see that top is bent a little bit. So now we're going to go back into the fire and you got to straighten it. Now, how do you straighten it? You just got to eyeball it. Hopefully you got some straight eyeballs, because that's about the best way that I found to is straighten them. So we'll go in here, and basically what I found is that I'll take that finished, once you split that cross open and you come into your vise, I kind of use the vise as my guide on, basically, do I have them straight or not. So if you got any type of vise, that's probably the easiest way to do it. Now these small ones, I make these, little small hammers. So you come in here with this and you work it in, because when it's hot, this is a disposable tool, so that's what it's for. This one here, I may have to use the hammer because I don't want to beat on it forever with the wooden, because it's 3/4 stock. But those, it's just basically, at this point, you're just eyeballing it, right? You're just trying to get it, shaped correctly. And so, and like I said, sometimes, like I said here, I can bend it and get it straight. Yeah, exactly. You're just eyeballing it. Because like I said, you're going to find with this bigger stock, you can see with a curve, I can't get all the way in there. Now, I could heat it up enough to squeeze it in there, but to me, that just makes it just doesn't do the look justice. Yes, I can fix that on the anvil. So, yeah, that's. So, like I said, so I got it pretty straight here. So now what I'm going to do is go back and just put the texturing in. And like I said, when it comes to the texture, you can do what you want. I've seen, people just take the peen side and peen it. I kind of like coming in with like an angle on the edge of the metal, and I like working it that way myself. But then I've seen some people take, if you got a small ball peen, like a small ball, and putting, using that to kind of put more dimples into it. I mean, at this point, it's kind of what you want to do. You can put it up here, take a chisel, put score marks in it. I've seen some people take a lot of time, and I'm going to try one eventually, is and putting score marks in to kind of look like splitting wood. So, actually, you know what? We're going to do that today. We're here, we're demoing, so we'll try it. So if I mess up, yeah, y'all just forgive me. So there you go. So I got one of them Mark Lane big chisels. Yeah, I got a couple of small ones. I got that one probably a little too sharp. Yeah, I split my finger open with it. But yeah, I kind of like to get my stuff a little too sharp sometimes. Come on. All right, so and what you want to kind of do is just kind of you know what, that's a little warm. Put my glove on, that's a little hard on the hand. Actually, you know what? I want to go to this round one. That way I can do a little bit smaller, marks in it. And obviously this is just aesthetics, right? So this is just basically get it to where you're happy with it. So now you can see the so basically, like, so you just start decorating to give it that kind of metal look. And since I'm the video guy, I'll do this. That way I can take a picture of it later. So here we go. So I mean, yeah. So at this point, is this going to work it? Now, the biggest thing you want to do is once you get it shaped how you want it, you're going to want to file the inside of it. So what I found, obviously on these smaller crosses, it's not so, I mean, but a kid could get their finger into it. You're going to find though that those inside cuts are pretty sharp. So you're definitely going to want to file them down, and that's the reason I brought this kit with me, so we can do that today. And what I found is kind of makes total sense, right? Just use a triangle shaped file and sit there and just, I mean, and especially when that metal is even at a red or a gray heat, yeah, it's still pretty soft, so it doesn't take much. You can just start. I kind of start at the bottom, and I just kind of run up, and then at that point, just feel it. If it don't feel sharp to me, I'm done with it. And thankfully, we're doing these decorations. You know, you don't have to have the metal really, really hot, especially if you got these hardened chisels. See if I can try to split the edge on this one. So I'm doing this live in front of y'all, first time ever. So there we go. So then, like I said, if you want to try to flare it a little bit, it's just kind of so it just kind of gives you that, you know, you can see what it was hot enough that I can start flaring it a little bit if you want it that way. So, all right, we'll get the other two sides done, and then we'll sand the middle of it, and then essentially this one will be done. And then we'll get on the snowflake, which will, like I said, it'll probably take me a little bit longer, just due to the fact that I got to get it. I'll be going in and out of heat a lot because the stock I have on that is. Well, I'll tell you what I did. So I took some of that 3/4 stock, and I made, you know, just a 3/4 snowflake, and that's kind of, that's 1/2 inch. So obviously this 3/4 is a lot bigger snowflake. I bought this aluminum, you know, 'cause I wanted to give that aluminum look. But whoever sold this didn't have it marked correctly. 'Cause this has to be some type of steel alloy or aluminum alloy, because this stuff moves like steel. It doesn't. I mean, I kept trying to work it, and I just could not get it to move like I wanted it to. I ended up putting it in my forge and got it to red heat, orange, which you shouldn't do with aluminum. Aluminum should melt at that point, and I worked it there. So, but still, once you brush this, it looks really cool because you got that real bright, you know, shine look to it. I was hoping. Well, did I bring it? Yeah, I got one here. So kind of what I'm going to do with this one is too, I'm going to take a brass brush, and if you take a brass brush and you stroke it, you'll actually give a gold look to your metal. So so what I'll end up doing on this one is I'll clean it up, and then I'm going to try to put a little bit of brass look on it. Oh man, I don't know. I think everything takes me a long time right now because a lot of stuff I'll still say I'm learning. So I'm still trying to get a lot of this stuff figured out. But to me, I spend more time with knives, and it's not so much forging knives; it's finishing them. Probably the thing that I take the longest time on right now that I would say that I currently make is those cable Damascus knives. I got one on my table over there, and because you got to think about at that point. I mean, you're having to forge weld that steel 100% forge welded. So you're working from the the knife end, you work down into the handle. So I spend a lot of time there because like what it sounds, you're really just trying to forge weld all that stuff together. So now you can see.
Nice.
Like I said, and I put the lines into it to kind of make it look like it's split wood. So what we're going to do now is go back in. I want to going to clean it up, and then I'm actually going to brass brush this one. So if you've never seen that done, if I can find my brass brush. Nope, no, not it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you may not see it because I may not brought it.
Is that happening because the brass is on the metal?
Yeah, yeah. So and it's and like I said, with the heat of the metal in the fire, and then when you brush the brass on it, it's basically that's what you're doing. You're just actually just transferring it. But the metal usually, even at a red heat, is still hot enough that it bonds it. So, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, I can't do it. I didn't bring my brush, but oh well. That's part of trying to bring your whole forge here to do a demo.
Is that one over here behind you?
No, that's a steel scraping brush, kind of like what I have here. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna kind of just work the ends down. Like I said, this doesn't take a lot of hard hammer strokes. You just kind of just working those corners flat a little bit. All right, and most any blacksmiths, you're going to mark your work. So go ahead and hot stamp. All right, so when I get this back home for the the guy I'm gonna sell this for, I'll use my bandsaw or chop saw or something to get the end piece off. And like I said, I'll probably end up cutting probably 1/2 inch off this piece of metal. And I'll decide which side it is, but so like I said, so the last thing you want to do with this is, like I said, if you could actually touch this, you would feel it. Get up here where I'm not messing it up. Is that, like I said, those inside corners are pretty sharp. So, like I said, 'cause I like that triangle because you can get down into it pretty good. So into the. Now I do like to do it from both sides. Don't really have to, but that way I got kind of the same bevel. Like I said, 'cause the last thing I want to do is somebody pick that up, put their finger inside of it, and it gets split open because they. So there you are. There's your finished split or Friedrichs cross. All right, so. That's the easy one. So now we're going to work on so now we're going to work on a snowflake. So let me pass out some of these. So, like I said, feel free to take these home. These are for everybody to keep. So, the biggest thing I found when I was doing this initially was I couldn't find anybody to give you, measurements. I think Jim sent me one later on. But the one thing I struggled with was finding was actually just finding somebody who would tell you, hey, make this cut, make this cut, make this cut. So on the Snowflakes, like I said, now these are my measurements. Jim sent me something from one of the blacksmith newsletters. His measurements were pretty close to mine, but like I said, one thing I noticed though when he was cutting his stock was he took his long end a little bit further than I did, so the gap between the two cuts on the side was a little bit closer. I tried that on one, but when I split it open, it kind of felt weak to me. Like somebody could actually bend it by hand, and I don't want that, right? Because I got 2 kids, 2 hurricanes, and so if they can break it, I'm gonna build it differently. So, so they actually. Oh no! It was interesting. Like I said, that was the first time I saw anybody else actually try to explain how to do this. And like I said, if you follow my Facebook page, I actually recorded myself building one because I can't even find a video of somebody making a snowflake. So I'm actually going to post a video. It'll be on my page, but I walk through basically how to make a snowflake. So I'll have that video up and within the next week as well. But as you can see here, the biggest thing is obviously if you're working with 3/4 stock like what I'll make today. Now, the reason I'm doing 3/4 stock because it will hold the heat better. Like I said, I found with the 1/2 inch and even the 3/8 stock, man, keeping heat in it long enough to get it out of the fire, get it onto the post fires. Usually by the time you get it clamped down, it's lost its heat already. So I'm usually struggling with it. So I do the non-traditional blacksmith thing, and I use an oxyacetylene torch. And but like I said, for me, it's quick. I'm barely using any gas, and I just heat it up real fast and I bend it. 3/4 holds its heat pretty well inside the fire. So that's what we'll do today. And you can see here, especially cutting this, you get a lot better. And don't judge my cuts. Everybody's thinking, your cuts are not straight. I promise you, when you get on the bandsaw, you're gonna find out how hard it is to keep this straight. I know I saw Derek made a jig for his. So, but he's got a lot, wider of a bandsaw blade. So, he's able to keep it from moving. But if you're using a porta band, you're going to get some movement in it, but you're going to find out once you get it opened up, you're not going to see it. So the first thing we're going to do here is kind of the same thing I said, before when you're doing these splits. Now, this one's going to be a little bit different. So when you're making your cuts, you're going to start off with 2 sections here and then 2 longer sections. And then you're going to rotate 90 degrees and then you're going to inverse it. But what you're going to find though is that you want a gap here this time. Because you're not so much trying to split it because it's automatically going to split anyway when you see it. Now, what some people do is, like I said, when you make the longer splits, you're able to open this up more so the center is open. But like I said, the last few times I did that, to me it felt weak. It felt like you can move it. This is half. I'm not moving it, because I've got enough meat here to kind of help stabilize it. But it's just your preference, right? So you can decide that, hey, I want to do this a little bit shorter. I would just say just play with it. And then when it comes to these flarings, I've seen people they'll do decorative, they'll put a couple of dots on it, or I've seen people actually chisel lines into it so it looks like it's got lines. I mean, like I said, once you get at this point, it's all aesthetics. It's just how does it look good to you? So and like I said, and I got these storyboards here. So and anytime I'm talking, if y'all want to come here, look at them, take pictures of them, that's what it's there for. So now we're going to go into the fire here. And the easiest thing I have found when doing these is I bend the large ends first. So I try to split the 2 longs. So that's kind of what you see in my storyboard is that I took a piece and I split the, So I split the first long piece, and this one I did it all the way flat. You know, so usually when I got it, and I did this one in the anvil with the settling torch. So when I had it grip viced in, so you see what I did, right? You see I got it hot, I bent it over and got it flat. So then what I would do is go back, flip it over, except the long side this time is going to flare 9 degrees perpendicular to it. So then you almost get to a point to where, and this one here is kind of intermediary. It kind of shows you, you know, what I was talking about. There's the first bend, and then there's the second long bend. So so the object is going to be is that your final splitting is you're going to have basically a kind of a cross shape. And then from there, it's just decoration at this point. You'll split your, use a hand chisel or, you know, hot cut, and you'll just split these ends open this as much as you want. I found sometimes that I'll take the chisel and I'll split it open a little bit, but then sometimes I'll just take a pair of scrolling tongs and take, you know, if you want to grab just the end of the scrolling tong and just kind of give it a little bit of a bend or a twist. And I try to do some of them a couple of different ways, and the reason I do that is because, like I said, everybody's tastes are different, right? So somebody may want it straight, some people want it curved, but usually, like I said, it just all comes to your taste and your preference, right? So, any questions? Anybody got anything to ask or?
Something like if you're just getting into, you know, making stuff, what do you think would be like just something to start out?
I mean, honestly, if anything I make, I would say this is the simplest thing I make right here. Because I mean, like I said, once you get the metal cut, it's just really bending it open and splitting it open.
It's a nice demo too.
So yeah, like I said, this stuff here is really simple to me. It's like I said, once you have your material prepped, it's just sitting in the fire and bending it. Other thing I would say I recommend you want to try to do is hooks. I've got a hook over there. Cause hook, you kind of learn how to take a square to a round, taper it, and then learn how to go over the horn of your anvil. Because most times you start off, you're not gonna have bending jigs and stuff like I have now. So you'll sit there and you'll learn how to bend it over the the horn of your anvil. It's a little warm, yeah. And I did the non-officer thing and forgot to wear my black shirt. I forgot I have it. So. I got my Carhartt shirt there. Put this back on. And like I said, I've been experimenting with the our videoing. Like I said, we're talking about getting some MFC equipment to leave here for videos. But like I said, what we're trying to do going forward while this is heating up is that you can probably see my camera rig here. We're trying to focus to where we have a wide shot to where you can see, whoever's in the fire. You'll be able to see everything they're doing if they're working anywhere right here. But also, I'll have another tripod next month. But we're going to try to have a shot directly on the anvil. So whenever they're doing detail work, I'll be able to picture the video. And like I said, any of these demos that I can end up. Well, I can video, and actually my video don't mess up because I've lost 3 demos this year because of sound problems. So the reason I'm carrying 2 mics now, one so y'all can hear me here too, so the camera can hear me better. So, all right, so all right. So, biggest thing you want to do now is get that lined up, and then. It's real gentle. You don't have to be really hard with this. That metal is pretty hot, and you gotta. And so, it'll take it a while to burn. So that's what it's for. Yeah, but it's kind of work it back and forth, and you're going to see it bends a little bit. That's fine. You're going to be able to fix this pretty easily. Like I said, I can go back in here now and see, I get a little more heat into it. You can see I could hold it and bend it by hand.
So you welded a bunch of 1/4 inch thick pieces together to
yes.
start that?
Well, no. This is one solid piece of metal. This is it's regular 3/4 stock.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah. So you were talking about forge welding. I've actually had that idea about actually doing it with actually individual pieces of metal and forge welding it in the center and then splitting it off. Yeah, is there some crazy idea I had? Yeah. I'm looking at the expert over here, so kind of one of the things you're laying in bed about to fall asleep. It's like, man, I wonder if I could do that, right? But I don't think so. but it's the same thing with that that piece here. This 3/4 stock, and it's making your cuts into it. I mean, honestly, I always thought this is the neatest thing, right? That the one thing I love about blacksmithing is that people who figure this stuff. I think Friedrich was the first one. I think claimed. I can't think of his first name now. But the first one that the split cross idea. But the idea that you can just do this. And of course, when you bend it open, people are like, man, how did you do that? And all it is just overlapping cuts. All right. So same thing. Actually, I'll do it a little differently this time. So I'll actually go into the anvil or device. And kind of, like I said, I just took this old cheap Harbor Freight. Chisel, and I just shaped it down because it was so thick, and I didn't want it thick because you can come down all the way to the bottom, and then once you get it there, you just so you can hip it down. That side's a little cold now, but so I mean, really, like I said, it's two ways you can do it. You can do it in the vise like I just did. So you can see we'll do it in the vise though. You can keep that center pretty straight. You can see if you're using the hot cut, you see what happened to that center one? How it kind of cantered over to one side. That's what you get from it being on the hot cut that I found. You're going to kind of get that bend, but it's so easy to fix that I don't even fret about it. So what we're going to do now is that I'll get it hot again, and we're just going to basically get it to that kind of, almost like a 4-dimensional T. So you're going to have a cross and almost in 4 dimensions when you get it. But like I said, the biggest thing you're going to find though is that time in the on the bandsaw. And like I said, I just did this watching football, so that way I'm one of those people I can't be still. I've always got to be doing something. So I literally was sitting there watching one of the Mississippi State football games at the kitchen table, just kind of marking them, listening, looking up, and just taking a Sharpie, a small square, and a ruler. I mean, literally, that's all I did. So,
have you ever made? What is the hardest thing you've ever made?
1 1/4 inch cable Damascus knife, because that small cable Damascus like what's over there, that's easy to me now. I can knock that out. I'm trying to weld one that's this big around. It is kicking my tail. The second thing, you think it'll be so easy to make nails. Nails are the hardest thing to me to get right. I don't know what, I can get the taper right, but getting that head square in the center of it and shaped right is kicking my tail. Part of me just blows my mind. It's like, man, I could sit here and weld a piece of cable together, make a knife out of it, but I can't make a bloody nail, All right, so when I get to this point here, that's where my rubber mallet comes into play, because I don't want to sit here and...
I don't think that's
Rubber? Yeah. I have a rubber mallet at home. That's what I'm thinking.
rubber ducky too.
Yeah, rubber ducky. Hey, don't be knocking my rubber ducky now. So, and the reason, like I said, to have a wooden mallet, you're thinking, well, you're hitting metal. Well, no, you don't want to, put dents in your metal sometimes. So like I said, though, I had that little off. It's easy to fix. So here it's just, like I said, it's just playing with it. Let's see, get that further down in there. So you can kind of see I got that kind of loose in the vise, but that way I can use it to hammer it down. And then I'll flatten it out on the anvil over here. So we're getting it there, right?
You just kept fiddling with it till...
Yeah, I mean, to me, like I said, the Snowflakes in a fire is harder to me than using a acetylene torch. Because acetylene torch, I can do it pretty quick. So,
the proportions on this,
mm-hmm.
on your cuts.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh yeah, right there. So yeah, so the biggest thing on the snowflake is that you don't want them to intersect. Not like on the Friedrichs cross. You know, Friedrichs, you want it to, yeah, you want them to overlap. You know, that way when you split. Now I have done it. The first time I did it, I didn't overlap them enough, and I end up putting on a hot cut, and I split it the rest of the way. But when I split it open, I had the same shape, but it was a solid cross. So I actually figured out I can do that. You know, so what I end up doing is I don't overlap them if I want to do a solid cross. I get them close, and then I use a hot cut, a hot cut on my Hardy, and I split it until it's flat. So then people really start wondering, like, how'd you do that? How'd you split, one piece of metal and get a cross out of it? Yeah. So the equation on the bottom of it. That's if you got any type of stock that you just want to play with. Man, this coal is sticky. I don't know what's in it. So you kind of see what I'm doing. I'm just using the Hardy Hove, the anvil, and just flattening it out. So I warned y'all it will take me longer to do this one than it would be the cross. But you got a lot more aspects to this one. The cross, you're just kind of getting that first split. This one here, you kind of. So I still got that one not wanting to do what I wanted to do. Yes. Especially in this coat forge. This coat forge will usually when I'm demoing. I do a lot of church events and stuff like that. Yep. If I end up demoing somewhere like that, I actually end up using my propane forge because especially when you're doing shows, you have people come up. And I mean, Lon does a lot of shows too, festivals. You have a lot of people come up and want to talk to you. Man, you leave something in there 2 seconds too long. Yeah, I've made a lot of shorter knives in my lifetime in my coat forge because of what you think, right? Because you get distracted, you get to doing, or too much at once, and next thing you know, oh crap! I had a cable knife, probably prettiest one I made to that point. Left it in there. My kid ran up to me. I helped him out. Ran back, pulled it out, and my knife lost 3 inches. It was in there for 10 seconds, guys. I mean, I'm talking about just total. So yes. So starting off, propane is actually to me easier than learning in coke, because propane, once you set the temperature, it's there. So when I'm doing shows and stuff, it no matter what, if I got a cable in there, I can forge with them in my propane forge. But I can just set the temperature. That metal can sit in there as long as I want it to sit in there. It's never going to get hotter than where I have it set to. This coat forge down in there is 3,000 degrees in there. So it don't take long. So anybody starting out, I got to where I wanted to do the coat forge once I had our green coal class here, because you can isolate the heat better. I'm not having to heat, especially if you're working on longer things, right, like a fire poker, things like that. You're not having to heat the entire mass. You can focus it because you can go in and out of your fire, you can control it. But propane to me is just way easier because you can control it. I mean, my daughter's 9 years old and she forges with me. But I let her forge in the propane forge. Why? Because attention span of a 9-year-old, right? If she gets distracted, I ain't got to worry about her burning her metal, because she's gotten to the point to where she likes making fire pokers. So she can forge with a fire poker at 9 years old.
Propane's clean.
So if you think you can't forge well, you can. So now you can see I got the snowflake shaped. So now all we're going to do now is just basically put it back in, and we're going to start working the ends. And for that, I'm going to try to keep that in the vise. But one thing I'm going to warn you with this is that, especially if you're in a coat forge like this, is that you got your fire, your fire here in your belly here, in your fire pot. You got coke above it, and then you want to try to keep your metal. Jim had to remind me of this a couple weeks ago because I kept stuffing it in there at an angle. But if you got your fire in the bottom of your fire pot, you want to put your metal in straight because you don't want to get down into that really hot metal. Obviously, you're going to burn your metal, but obviously, you know, oxygen, the scale, and everything. So what's going to happen with a snowflake is it doesn't matter which way I put it in there. I'm going to have a thin piece of metal sticking straight down, which means I'm not going to leave it in there or I'm going to watch it because look, that right there. The rest of it ain't ready, but I got one that's ready. So. So the biggest thing you're going to find with doing this in a coke forge is that you're going to have to be careful that you don't. I lost my heat already. So I'm not even going to put much air on it because basically the way it's going to work, what I do in a acetylene torch is I'm going to put one end in, bend it back in, but it's going to be pretty quick, right? Because you don't have a lot of mass there. The metal's going to heat pretty quickly, and you can sit there and you can bend it relatively quickly. But actually, when I get it up here, though, I'm not going to use anything. I'm going to use that old custom Harbor Freight 101 chisel. But I will say though, it's held up pretty well. I put it to the grinder, you know, thankfully it's octagon shape, so I kind of left the center and I just ground it down a pretty good ways, basically for my big crosses. That's what I built it for the length of my big cross. And then I basically reheat treated it and it hasn't lost its edge. So, I'm not saying Harbor Freight steel is the best steel, but I can tell you their heat treat process ain't as good as it could be. So, yep, thank you, Jim. So, I mean, all I'm going to do is just go in. So I may have to hammer it in a little bit. And then bend it up. Yes, sir. Thank you. Oh, there you go. Just that quick. So all we're going to do now is just, I'm going to put a corner in every time, and I'll put it on the top this time where it won't move as much. Like I said, but I'm not going to have that fire going too hot because, like I said, I just want it. You can see even at that kind of dull, that almost a low end of red, I'm still able to bend it pretty easily to get that shape I want out of it. So once I finish this up, I'll clean it up. And I'll throw the snowflake in the iron hat. That'll be a demo piece. But then, like I said, I got plenty of cross material. So what I want to kind of do is open up the forge. So if you want to make a split cross, I got the material for you to make one. And you can see it won't, especially that it's half-inch stock, it won't take you long at all. And then you feel free to take that home with you. I know how these demos are. Usually I come to these demos and I watch somebody do something that I want to do and I'm thinking, oh, that's pretty cool. I go straight home and try to do it, because I want to get it when it's fresh in my brain. All right, so same thing, back into the, I said I may have to use this a little bit on this. Using that smaller stock, I don't really have to use the hammer, but all you're trying to do is get it all the way down and just flare it how you want to flare it. So just that. I see that's still hot. I don't feel like it. So if anyone wants to see that, that's the one I made earlier. Kind of put the lines into it. If you didn't hear me, I was putting the lines into it to make it look like it was actual wood, kind of rustic wood. And and like I said, when you make these, if you're trying to sell them, like I said, my white ones seem to do pretty good, but I also sell just the plain ones. And what I try to do is I try to have a mix, right? I have some that are just straight metal. I just brush them because I found some people just want to paint them themselves. Actually, I think my daughter this afternoon wants to come out. I got to make her some because she wants to make one for her Christmas tree, but she wants to paint it herself. So So yeah, just leave them straight metal. Usually, if I take stuff to shows, like everything you see here has a flat or a matte paint on it. So and I just do that for things that are not like eating utensils and stuff like that. So it just doesn't rust. A lot of people don't, wants the silver metal. If I use beeswax to kind of give it that black texture. I got to message the guy about that and figure out what kind of finish he wants on those. Or like I said, I found really good success getting the just plain flat white straight to metal primer, and just painting that on there. And I've sold a lot of them. They're just white, already. So. That's hot enough. I almost wish that was rotated just a hair. That'd be good. But anyway. All right, we got. All right, we got 2 left. All right.
Got enough acetol.
Yeah. So, any idea who wants to make a cross after I get done with this? Okay.
What's your little brother?
What I'm going to do is I brought extra crosses. I'm going to let someone get in the fire and let them make a cross they can take home.
Give me my little brother.
Sure. Okay. Anybody else? You want one, Lewis? What do you want? What size you want?
Give me a broken one. Thank you, sir.
It's a split one. Or you want a solid one? Here.
Solid.
Yeah, okay, solid one. All right. Thank you. Like I said, I'll stay. I can stay to 1 o'clock. So there you go. I can stay that long and help everybody because I got to pick my kids up from a birthday party. After that. But like I said, so I like to, when it comes to, some of the demos you've seen, this one's not that complicated. But like I said, what I found though is, man, people just love the small stuff.
Yeah, I think having this, I'm probably gonna hang it up on my wall.
This might be small, but it's work intensive.
Oh, it is, yeah.
It's a simple process, but it's fiddly.
Yeah, well, and
All those little bits.
well, and like I said, yeah, and you're seeing right, what it's taking because that split cross, if I wasn't demoing, I can do that cross in 2 heats. Especially the 3/4 slot, they'll hold the heat. And if I preheat my anvil where it's not robbing my heat out of it, I said literally 2 heats, I can have that split cross done and thrown inside. Now these, the 3/4 stuff I like in the fire, my propane, that way I can heat it all. Because if I can get the mass heated, it seems like I can do a lot more work. Yes, sir.
So are you gonna be able to help me with this?
Yes, I'm gonna help everybody with it.
All right.
Yep.
I ain't never done anything like this. But
Oh, no, hey, this is easy. So yeah, it's
Can I get a different piece of metal? Or?
yeah, any one in that box you can have.
I have a question. What's the average monthly upkeep for a forge? Like if you make
Oh, is
1
this
or 2
like
things a day.
If I forge all day, especially in my my coke forge, and I think Palmer's pretty much been the same. I can go through a bag of coke a day. It's just about what I average. If you got a coke forge, and that's if you buy it by the ton, what $15-$20 a bag. If you're buying it by the ton, 25, yeah.
It's got
A
really,
ton?
yeah. We used
Like
to buy it. We used to buy
200,
it for
like-
$98 a ton, and now it's $800.
Yeah. So, so if you're doing this or you're doing propane, it's about the same. Coke used to be a little bit cheaper, but propane seems to.
What do you mean by? What are you saying? Coke?
Yeah. So this is coke. So, when you mine coal out of the ground, to get coke, they burn it in a 0 oxygen environment. And so what that does,
Charcoal out of wood.
It's
Yeah.
processed coal. It's already been heated, and a lot of the impurities burned out of it, and that's what you did. That's what you have to do with a coal forge. Is when you put coal in there, you've got to burn it into coke before you can actually start using
So
it.
it's basically high purity coal.
Yeah, well, I'd say that's a good way to say it.
That's really
Baked
cool.
coal.
Yeah, so yeah, so traditional blacksmith, you have your coal sitting back here because that's what you're doing. You're baking it.
Cook
Um,
the impurities out of it.
Now we put ours back here because we're in Mississippi and we got humidity in it. So if you take that coke is out there and put it straight on that fire, it's like throwing firecrackers on it.
Right, yeah, it will. It'll actually hurt.
Yeah. So, all right. So there's your.
Little snowflake. Nice. That's cool. Awesome.
So and this one here, I'll just leave like this. That way you can paint it, you can coat it, or however you want to do it.
That's a single piece of iron going into a bunch of directions.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty cool.
I like the little like middle of it. That looks pretty cool. I have my glasses on.
Nice demo.
That's cool. Awesome.
Yeah. Here you want to go first?
Lon, why don't we do the iron in the hat and then let them crank up some fires and do their own crosses that they've just.
How many we got doing?
I said we probably all yeah. If